Hello, everybody. I am so delighted to be here with a dear new friend, a friend who feels like an old friend, but who is in time a new friend. I think we're meeting again, actually. Her name is Jude Currivan, and she is a stunning visionary writer. And she's written a book, which I've just started, called The Cosmic Hologram, which I can already tell you will rock your world. It is an amazing book about the latest cutting edge discoveries in quantum physics and how they mirror so exactly the supreme mystical discovery of the enlightened ones. So, Jude, let's plunge in, and I want to ask you one question to begin with.
Sure.
And that is, where do you think humanity is at this moment? Where are we? I thought I'd just plunge you in the deep end.
Why not, Andrew?
Yes.
Why not? Nothing,
You're
nothing
British.
trivial to start with.
Yes.
Where do I think? I feel we're on a pivotal moment. My own guidance, but also the guidance of many Indigenous elders that I work with, have said for a long time that this decade is our tipping point. It doesn't mean that we have to resolve everything through this decade, but if we're not reversing our trajectory,
Radically.
radically transforming our trajectory by mid and towards the end of the decade, then we'll have gone beyond an irreversible, um, ability to perhaps even survive, let alone thrive. So, and I
I'm
feel that
so
that is.
glad you said that because so many people are pussyfooting around this and it's of no help. We're not supposed to shock people into terror, but we are meant to warn people. The Kogis, and I know you're aware of the Kogis, and I have a particular relationship with the Kogis because I helped Alan Herrera get his great book get published and persuaded the Luz Foundation to give some money to buy land for the Kogi. So I feel very identified with their message. And they're saying, look, there are 6 years at the most, because they know from their own visionary understanding and from their relationship with the land that everything in the world is now hanging by a thread. The Aborigines are saying the same things. The Yamamamis are saying the same things. The Navajo are saying the same things. The climate scientists whom I trust are saying the same things. We have got to listen.
I wholeheartedly. I mean, I talk a lot about we're suffering through from two diseases at the moment. The first is COVID-19, and we've now got vaccines that will help to deal with that. But for me, the most fundamental disease is our fragmented view of the world,
Oh,
the
yeah.
illusion of separation, because that is the dis-ease that has brought us to this pivot point, this catastrophic point. And as you say, all our Indigenous friends and wisdom teachers understand this. That is not their worldview. They have been the wisdom holders for a holistic worldview, whereas we've collectively gone forgotten it. We have to remember who we really are. If we don't wake up to remember that we're actually inseparable, then that pivot point, that tipping point will come and go, and we'll still be on this destructive, catastrophic trajectory.
But this remembering we're talking about is, in fact, a very profound activity, isn't it? There are a lot of people who say, oh, we are one, and who go for a weekend to the local shaman and dance around in the grass and feel that they have reconnected. But you and I know that that reconnection is a tremendous mystical labor. It takes a huge act of the soul and an unlearning of so many atrocious mental habits. It's not easy.
Absolutely. I mean, Ken Wilber talks about waking up and growing up, but then, Dustin DePerma talks about cleaning up. We've got so much embodied trauma, and Paul Levy, of course, talks about this. We've got so much embedded trauma because of our fragmented buy-in to the illusion of separation. And so, it's like as though we're dragging this trauma with us, and we can't move into the potential the potential for our evolutionary, conscious evolution without at least helping to resolve some of that trauma. And I mean, do you feel, because I do, that it's coming, as a healer, that it's coming to the surface now? We can't deny it anymore.
Oh my God, I think that we're living in a great orgy of the shadow. Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
shadow is having an absolutely mad orgy. And I think the reason for that is that the divine is offering us a real deep one last chance to look at how dangerous our psyche has become, and how addicted to comfort, how addicted to violence, how addicted to domination, how absolutely lost a whole part of our reaction to the world is, and how lethal it is. And that is, of course, terrifying, but it's also an opportunity. But you have to have some kind of inner stability, inner realization to take that opportunity, because a great many people are just reeling into magical thinking, or into denial, or into actually joining the shadow orgy, like the Republicans in the States who have just gone hell-bent for lies and power and money. It's terrifying. So there's no guarantee that the shadow orgy will wake us up.
There isn't. I mean, that's the point of a rite of passage. There's no
Right,
guarantee. There's no
right.
guarantee. You go into that rite of passage with no guarantee that you're going to come out the other side, let alone come out the other side more grown up, more woken up, more showing up, more all the, all the aspects that entails for us. But I do feel we're in that rite of passage, like it or not. I feel we're in that sort of birth canal. And with all of the sort of the challenges that you describe, Andrew, I also feel, and I hope you do too, I really do feel that there are increasing numbers who are, from a very long journey, this is not a click switch, this has been a long journey for many people, are actually at that place where there is that connection, that grounding, that anchoring. And surely then it behoves anyone who is able to, is to reach out and link up and lift up with others, to invite them on this journey of homecoming.
I feel that very deeply, and I feel that this is a moment of absolute terror, but absolutely extraordinary possibility, both at the same time, that we're holding hitherto unimaginable opposites. We're holding, on one hand, the distinct likelihood that we will commit suicide and matricide, and on the other hand, the possibility of an unprecedented birth of consciousness in action in the world that we can see already beginning in Black Lives Matter, in the Extinction Movement. Extraordinary people are rising up, of all kinds, all ages, from all aspects of the world and all realms in the world, to say this has to stop, and we're willing to do the work to stop it. So both are going on at the same time. And our job, it seems to me, as elders, as wild elders who have been on the journey for a long time and who know the reality of oneness because we've experienced it and it has infused our lives and our work. Our job is to keep trucking joyfully and ruggedly, don't you think? And just offer everything that we have and fling around the golden seed in the hope that it really does take root, but with hope in our hearts, but a rugged hope, a realistic hope.
It's a rugged hope. I love that term, a rugged hope, a realistic hope. Absolutely. And I go back sort of 10, 15 years, and there was this sort of warning of breakdown or breakthrough, and then break. But now it's both.
Exactly.
This is both. I mean, I talk about not paradox of that, but parallax of that. Because a parallax is where you're really seeing the same thing, but from different directions.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So if we're actually realizing that we can look on that way and it's breakdown, but that way and it's breakthrough, and it's and. For me, this is more of a metamorphosis, potential metamorphosis, where, the caterpillar breaks down to mush. And as that's happening, the imaginal cells of the potential butterfly are starting to awaken.
Yes.
And the amazing thing is that there's two different aspects of its DNA. So the old immune system of the caterpillar that's breaking down attacks the emergence of the butterfly, but it makes the butterfly stronger. It makes the butterfly stronger. And I love that. It's such a great metaphor for what I'm feeling. We're in
Oh,
the
I
midst.
know you. That's what I feel too. When you were talking, I was thinking of a moment about 20 years ago, and I was in an Indian street walking down a back street in Delhi, and I saw this woman on the pavement writhing in pain. And I thought, oh my God, she's dying, she's dying. And she was screaming and she was screaming. And then she gave birth. So what I thought was dying was actually birthing. And you couldn't tell the difference. You can't tell the difference when a woman is being convulsed by that vast birthing force and crying out in the pain of it, whether she's dying or birthing. That's what's happening right now. That's the parallax, isn't it?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. My goodness me, what a sight.
But that was, and what you're saying too about the butterfly,
Yeah.
what is very important in my work, and I know in your work, is really pointing out those imaginal cells, recognizing them in ourselves as
Yeah.
we crystallize the perceptions and the dedications of a lifetime, but also constantly pointing them out in the real world to people who are tempted to despair, because there's no, what you said, that there is an immense transformation happening. You can see it, I can see it. We're lucky enough to live lives in which we're in contact with some of the most astonishingly brave and creative people in the world, who are not only standing up, but bringing in extraordinary, deep, profound new visions that could become the foundations of a wholly new way of being and doing everything. This is what you've been doing for all of these years in this wonderful marriage between your own profound mystical journey and what your scientific knowledge and scientific awareness has introduced you to. So could you talk about the hope that this marriage of what I would call the inner sciences and the external sciences is now offering us? What is the promise of this sacred union of science and mysticism that you've been pioneering, and that is really the cutting edge of our time, and I believe of human evolution?
Well, thank you. And you know, it's the perfection of it. It's the perfection of timing of it that's so important. You know, if it had emerged 30 years ago, we'd have still been on this sort of path of separation and all the rest of it that you spoke about, and people would not have listened. We're now at that point of desperate. Isn't it amazing when people are desperate, they'll actually listen to,
Yes.
to crazy things that they wouldn't have listened to before, and now they, oh, okay, whoa, that might help. It is quite extraordinary because, you know, mainstream science, as we both know, has told us a story, and that story is of the appearance of reality. And the appearance of reality as being solely material and made up of separate things. It's described the appearance of reality. What it's not done is share the truth of reality
Right.
at the deeper level. And over the last few years, and we were given clues. My goodness me, quantum theory, relativity theory gave us clues that were far more interconnected than the sort of mechanistic mainstream science was telling us. But they were sort of pushed to the side. The sort of philosophical and deeper understanding of those are pushed to the side, and science progressively became technological rather than seeking to answer the really deeper.
It became a servant of power instead of a
It's
servant of illumination, didn't it?
absolutely beautifully put. But what's been happening literally in the last few years is a new understanding has been coming forward, and it's been backed up by evidence, because this is what really excites me. If it was a theoretical framework, oh lovely, but it's absolutely based on compelling evidence at all scales of existence and across numerous fields of research. So we're not just saying, oh, it's coming from physics or it's coming
It's in
from
biology, it's in
everywhere,
ecobiology, everything. Yeah.
everywhere, and at all
Revealing
scales.
interconnectedness as the law of reality.
Exactly, but even
Right,
deeper than interconnectedness,
right.
that our universe literally exists and evolves as a unified
Yes.
entity,
In
where
which
its
we
appearance
participate.
Yes, it's
Yes.
participative. It's
Yes.
unfolding. It's so exquisitely set up that it actually embodies this innate evolutionary impulse to
Yes.
evolve from simplicity to complexity and ever greater levels of self-awareness. And so its appearance of energy and matter and space and time are emergent phenomena from deeper levels of conscious causation, of cosmic consciousness, of cosmic mind. Literally, mind and consciousness aren't something we have, they're what we and the whole world are. And that is what indigenous teachings, ancient wisdom teachings, universal spiritual experiences have been saying all along. So
Wow.
absolutely
And
this convergence.
even more importantly than that, and you're right about everything you've said, but what really has astounded me in the last 20 years when I plunged into a study of evolutionary mysticism, which is different from many aspects of ancient wisdom, which tend to
Yes,
talk about
yes,
liberation from the world and going off into the transcendent awareness,
you're
which is
so
very
right.
important. But evolutionary wisdom said, no, that's not the final goal. The final goal is to embody that transcendent wisdom in a dynamic way that actually sets us on a path of transfiguration. This is what the Kabbalists knew. This is what the
Yep.
Shamanic mystics knew. This is what the alchemists of China knew. This is what is at the secret heart of Vajrayana. This is at the secret heart of Christian mysticism in its understanding of the resurrection and of the transfiguration process that Jesus began and wants the whole race to go through. This is at the heart of the work of Teilhard de Chardin, who is describing the universe very much in the way that you're doing. This is at the heart of the work of Aurobindo. So we're
Absolutely.
coming to this moment when we're not just going beyond the old science, we're going beyond many aspects of the old wisdom. We're keeping the old wisdom's essential understanding of divine identity, of the original blessing of divine consciousness that every being has. And we're keeping the old wisdom's recognition of the entire universe as a manifestation, a glorious manifestation of consciousness. But we're going to go further now and take the keys and the clues that were offered up by these great secret evolutionary pioneers and realize they are the ones who can really make this marriage between science's discovery of the whole universe as being governed and propelled by the evolutionary impulse and the dynamic nature of consciousness itself. And this means for me a radical reintegration of the mother force in the Godhead on every level, because it's the mother that keeps birthing, expanding, inventing new possibilities of intricate union between spirit and matter. And that's Aurobindo's great revelation, but also the revelation of the great Christian mystics who understood that Mary wasn't simply the sweet girl who did all the things she did, but she was an incarnation of that force that births the dynamic, transfiguring Christ consciousness. I could go on and on about this, but this is the most thrilling aspect of our time, the marriage between cutting edge science and cutting edge evolutionary mysticism. That's the revolutionary force, it seems to me.
I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, I love how you speak this because it reaches me at such a profound level.
Well,
And
you know it,
indeed,
don't you?
of course, because
Yes.
some years ago, when I was guided to write The Cosmic Hologram, I was told, no, it's not a one-off book, it's part of a transformation trilogy. And that trilogy, the first piece is the understanding of the unity and unified reality of our universe and how it exists and evolves as a unified entity and multidimensionally with the divine manifested through it. But the second book will be the heart. So if that's the head, the next book is the heart.
Right.
And she's writing me at the moment called Gaia Her Story.
Wow.
It's exactly what you just said. It's the story of a living planet in a living universe that exists to evolve and very much this complementarity of the masculine, the feminine on a universal level. But then the third book because this book, Gaia's story, humans only just tip in at the end.
Right.
The third book.
Not as important as we think, but we have an extraordinary role.
I've got 2/3 of the way through the book and we've just come to slime molds. So they are amazing. But the third book is called Many Voices, One Heart, and that is the story of us. So that does talk of the divine impulse to ever greater levels of self-awareness and the urgent need and necessity to reintegrate the sacred marriage
within ourselves,
and the feminine and the masculine. And then, I mean, the promise of that is the birth then of the Christ child, is the promise of the divine child within each and every one of us.
That can't happen without a radical reimagining of what you call self-awareness.
Absolutely.
And many, many people in the spiritual movement go on and on about self-awareness. And what they really mean is just having an experience of the light and of the light consciousness and feeling one with that, which is wonderful, but it's just the beginning.
It's just the beginning.
Because you need to integrate that experience in a vivid, dynamic, passionate way into your mind, into your heart, into your body, into your will, and into your actions.
Absolutely.
Because the consciousness of the divine, it has two main aspects. It has the aspect of infinite peace and infinite spacious self-adoring self-awareness, self-bliss, but it also has the aspect of infinite dynamic, ecstatic, blissful creativity.
Exactly.
So until you connect with both and marry them both inside you, marry what you could call in the ancient Hindu system, the great masculine silence and peace with the great feminine wildness and holy power and creativity, until those two have become one in you, you're only having a very minor realization of your own essential divinity. And you can't, if you just rest in the awareness without realizing its dynamic invitation, its passion for participation, its infinite gift of creativity, you won't get to where you're meant to be, which is the living Buddha, Christ, the living one, the one who is uniquely born into their own marriage. What Kabir says, my father is the absolute Godhead, my mother is the embodied Godhead, and I am their divine child, dancing for them both on their burning dance floor. That's the entire secret of the evolutionary mysticism. But it's got to come in, and it can only come in through a revolution of the patriarchal mystical system.
Oh, absolutely.
A revolution of the religious systems that have kept people in a state of depraved unworthiness. And it's going to take massive efforts to get that vision across. It's very thrilling, but people are scared of the power and the responsibility that it imposes. Because if you are a co-creator of the entire universe, and this is the whole point of your book, The Cosmic Hologram, it's the whole point of my book, Radical Regeneration, it's the whole point of this vision of the marriage of science and evolutionary mysticism. If you are that, that means that every thought, every word, every act you have alters the destiny of the cosmos. I was sitting once with a French astrophysicist at the Café Flore in Paris with Eva de Vitré-Meyerovitch, who's the world's greatest translator of Rumi, and my great friend, and we did a book together. And he was talking about the interconnectedness of everything, and he raised his cup and he said, something is changing on Betelgeuse as I drink coffee. And we both laughed, but it was an amazing moment.
Yes.
Because how do you live with that consciousness without becoming massively more awake to the consequences of absolutely every movement, every connection? And people want an off-planet God who just do things for them and help them manifest Malibu mansions and Cuban houseboys and, you know, large bank accounts. They want to be in that passive narcissistic role because it gets them off the bloody hook of really turning up as co-creative agents with and in the divine of a wholly new way of being and doing everything. That's the block, I think, in so many.
I think it is, and it is a massive block. I mean, what I
You
talk
agree with
about.
me? Does that make sense to you?
Oh, totally, absolutely, totally. But
Fed up with it. Yeah.
you said two things there that really resonated with me. You talked about power, and for me, there's two sorts of power.
Right.
There's the me power of the ego, and there's
Yes.
the M power
Yes.
of the transcendent
Yes.
service.
Yes.
And so, and it's all part of this is laying the shoes of our ego at the door, at the
Yes.
threshold, and
Yes.
entering in barefoot and open-hearted,
Yes.
and showing up, yes, but showing up and getting out of the way.
Yes.
If that
But
makes
that's the
sense.
key to this marriage, you see, because
Exactly.
the danger that this new knowledge gives us proposes to, for example, last week we had the Nobel Prize given to Jennifer Doudna, who's done this amazing work on editing of genes. And
Yes.
there was a wonderful conversation on TV between Walter Isaacson, who's written a great book about her, and Francis Collins, who said, look, this is fabulous, but it's extremely dangerous because look what we've done with all of the other great discoveries of power. Look, with nuclear power and the internet, we're not mature enough remotely yet to be able to deal with the responsibilities of this power.
Absolutely.
So unless there is a marriage between the highest knowledge of quantum physics and the power that it gives us with the most scrupulous, stringent understanding of the mystical systems as to how to refine and finally annihilate and rebirth the ego in the self, we are going to use this knowledge to annihilate ourselves and not to transform ourselves. It will just increase our madness and our hubris instead of giving us this child consciousness, this tender, humble, awake, loving, justice empowered, compassion driven consciousness that comes when the ego has exploded into the self. So they have to come together
Yeah.
now.
I think it's the difference, isn't it, between cleverness and wisdom.
Yes, yes.
And that's where the indigenous teachers so much. I want to ask
But
you a
wisdom
question
is
about.
sold in the desolate market, as Blake said, where none come to buy. So if you're going to acquire the wisdom that you need, you're going to have to be prepared to go on a dying process.
Yes.
You're on a
Yes.
journey to die into life.
Yes.
And that's what the
Absolutely.
mystical systems are so important in helping you do.
I agree. I mean, I wanted to sort of bring things up to date now in terms of asking you a question,
Oh,
because it seems to me that the youth get it. The youth get this.
yes.
Youth get this. So, how do we, when you talk about us, what I describe as linking up and lifting up, is how do we invite the authentic voices and the authentic participation of youth? Because they're the ones that are even more than we are, for
Right.
sure, living through this birth canal, living through this metamorphosis process.
Well, let me tell you what I really think. I think you're right up to a very important point, and that is that the young are waking up to the dereliction of the world. They're waking up to a wholly new vision of sexuality. They're waking up to the need for sustainable living. They are amazingly compassionate and amazingly intelligent and mature and balanced in ways that just make me want to kneel before them. However, they still belong to an extremely entitled, fast-paced culture. And I haven't yet found enough of them willing to do the actual rigorous work of spiritual transformation. They want 20-minute versions of the path to realization. They want instant practices that will help them. They have the impatience of youth, which is a fabulous thing, but in the revolution that is required now, they're going to have to humble up and realize that they've got to do some serious work to be able to transform themselves, to be able to be strong enough and hold the wisdom that they so nearly do. I
So,
talked,
how do we help them navigate that rite of passage? Because
but do
it
you
is a
agree
rite
with
of
what I'm
passage.
saying? I just want,
Absolutely,
and this
absolutely.
is what I say to my young friends. I say, you make me cry with admiration and love. I am so proud of you, but you are still caught in a in a world which is horribly narcissistic. You're still unconsciously extremely entitled. You do believe that you have the right to everything right now. And there's a wonderful demand in that. But don't fool yourself about the business of awakening, because awakening takes rigor. It takes knowledge. It takes real work. It takes radical humility. It takes dedication of tremendous amounts of time, knowing that that is the one thing needful. There is no fast way, no modern way for the young to radical illumination. There can't be, because the transition from the ego to the self is a massively difficult journey. So please accept my love for you and my admiration for you, but please listen to someone who has been on the path for 40 years and will give you the information, will not lie to you about the cost and the price, but will encourage you at every level to get going. So that's what I feel about the young. I feel that we have to move towards them and lavish on them love and praise and recognition. But they too have to realize that they are still in the miasma of the culture and need to recognize the absolutely intense and clear importance of really attending to the laws of true transformation that we have been able to live by. So the Dalai Lama can stand in front of a young audience and, of course, lavish them with his presence. But if they don't realize that the Dalai Lama didn't just suddenly pop up and be the Dalai Lama after a few intensives, he became the Dalai Lama a few centuries ago after multiple acts of sacrifice and real discipline. So how to get the young to see that without frightening them or alarming them or putting them down in any way, that's the real challenge.
I wholeheartedly agree, and that's the real opportunity as well.
Yes.
So I suppose what I'm sort of extending an invitation for us both and many others that have gone the sort of the scenic route to where we're at.
Well, it hasn't been that scenic in my case, and I'm sure it hasn't been that scenic.
No, it hasn't. I mean, it's been a hard, yeah, of course. And I don't want to appear facetious, but when I say scenic route, it's taken me in many ways. But my sense is, you know, the opportunity we have is to really link up and lift up from this place of, you know, our knees are scuffed, our hearts have been broken numerous times. We've managed to fit them back together and we've managed to get to where we are.
Yes.
So that you don't have to go through those 40, 50, 60 years.
Yes.
You can't switch on a light bulb with it, but we can help and support you and, you know, invite you and companion you and love you all the way through.
But we can't help you die into life.
We can't help you die, and we can't rescue you.
On yourself. And
we can't rescue you, can't help you die.
Right. Yeah. This is not an easy transformation you're being asked to do. We can give you the concentrated wisdom, the maps, the practices, which we know work, but you will have to go through the stages. They may go very much faster for you than they did for us, because we were pioneers and we brought all of this and we had to live it all out in an extremely ungrateful, unsupportive, absolutely devastated culture. We did it. Here it is, but don't fool yourselves. Get going. That's my, so I want that to be there for them, because otherwise we're actually lying to them and we're pampering them in ways that they're already over pampered. They need real people to tell them the real truth. And when I speak like that with the young, they love it, because they realize, first of all, I am not flattering them. No. Secondly, I am acknowledging their grandeur and their amazing challenge. Thirdly, I'm telling them the skinny, and they respect that. So I do it that way. But how do you suggest that it should be done?
I would agree the same thing. I think more of us need to be doing it.
Right.
I think more of us need to be linking up and lifting up, so that it's not just Andrew's journey or Jude's journey.
God, no.
You know, there are thousands of us that actually, with slightly different words, could be telling the same story. So how do we not just tell this story, but how do we somehow, and I know that we do in our work and others do in their work, but it's finding a way to be close to young people on a
Yes.
scale and a speed, because I really do feel that many young people are absolutely, like people of all ages, desperate to hear this truth.
They're desperate to hear it, but they're
They're desperate
desperate.
to hear it and to be empowered by it, to be
Yes.
empowered by it.
But to be empowered by it, they're going to have to do the practices. They're
Of
going to have to
course.
change their lives. They're going to have to dedicate themselves. So as long as we keep saying that, both things, here it is, but this is what it demands, then I am with this. But it's not going to work if it's another, new age
Oh
fantasy.
God, no,
It's got
absolutely
to
not.
be rigorous and disciplined, doesn't it?
I think it would be even
And
worse than,
static, yeah.
I think it would be worse than nothing if it was that.
Right,
Because, you know, our young people and our societies have been given so much BS
right.
over, and we're now at a point where, it doesn't serve, it just doesn't not serve. It's absolutely dangerously unserving of what we need to be. We really have to. I always remember doing a workshop once with a few people, and after the workshop, one of the women said, "I came into this workshop with a lovely curtain in front of my face, and you just tore it away." And I had to see reality.
Right.
And what I hope I did was to support her in that. So not just,
Yes.
here it is, but this is what we can do to help
Oh
each
God, yes. Because,
navigate this.
right, because our job is to represent the humble splendor that's born when the ego explodes into the self. That's, we've got to represent it, we've got to be it, we've got to radiate it, we've got to be encouraging, but we cannot join this vast social conspiracy of narcissistic pampering that's going
Absolutely.
on. That won't help them, because it would be, I remember talking about precisely this to Marion Woodman, who, like you and me, were passionate about reaching the young. She said, well, if you don't tell them the truth about the path, it's like sending them into a forest fire dressed in a paper tutu. It's
Yes.
not going to work. So sometimes I've been to these gatherings, supposedly linking up and all that, and there've been a lot of people dancing around and taking drugs and having vague ecstatic experiences, all of which I am totally fine with. But that isn't going to make you strong enough to face the potential end of the planet. That isn't going to give you the passion force to do serious activism. That is not going to wake you up and embolden you in your authentic divine self. It might be a door, but you've got to go through that door into a room where you take very seriously the work that's required. So
Absolutely.
I've seen a lot of attempts at that, which have actually just ended up in a lot of people putting on costumes and dancing around in the long grass, but no real serious work. And I frankly, that made me angry, because it was failing them.
I think it has been a failure, but I'm also not personally wanting to get in any sort of blame game, because I look at the 13.8 billion year story of our universe.
You've got perspective. If you're only on slime mold,
Yeah,
oh,
see
it's
your
not a blame
perspective.
game, but it is now urgent, this
It
question.
is now urgent for
Because
our
let me,
species and for Gaia, yes.
Jude, let me give you another example. I'm not playing devil's advocate. I'm 1,000% with you. I'm just saying we've got to refine our game into be both tender and bladed. And I talk to a great many activists, for example, because of sacred activism and because of this vision of bringing together deep spirituality and activism. The hardest thing, there are two hard things in this world. The first is to persuade mystics who are quite satisfied with sitting on their futons to do anything. And the other hardest thing, even harder, is to persuade activists that there is anything good about religion or the mystical systems, because all they've seen for years are religions that promulgate injustice and mystics who are blissed out and don't give a flying you-know-what for the burning forests or the failing animals. So they are extraordinarily resistant to the very thing that would give them the strength and the stamina and the peace and the equilibrium and the power to put their activism into another level of effectiveness and deep continuity. So we're dealing with very, very extraordinary problems, aren't we?
As you say, it's the mystics on the one hand who don't want to get real with the embodiment, and it's the
Right.
activists on the other hand who don't get real with the mysticism.
Well,
And
not
it's,
only with the mysticism, they
but
don't want to do shadow work
they don't use
because they are right, which they are in so many ways, and they're demonizing the crazies who, and they're not wrong, but they're not working on their shadows, which is why most activist organizations are hotbeds of mad ego.
Yeah.
And why they don't work, and
Yeah.
why people come together in righteous indignation but start tearing each other's guts out after 3 weeks, fighting for power in the different organizations. I've seen it again and again. So something new has to come in, and it has to come in fast, because you may only have got to slime mold in the story of the planet, but we're near the end of the story if we don't get this right.
And if we don't change, it will probably be that the slime molds inherit the earth.
Yes, and cockroaches.
And they deserve to be absolutely
And
honest. They've
share,
hung
of
around
course.
for 1 billion years without anything. But I agree with you, and it is this moment. I mean,
I'm not trying, I want, because I love what you're saying, but I don't think we can face, you see, Jesus gave a very important instruction to me, and it is to combine the innocence of the dove with the wisdom of the serpent.
yes,
To me, that means absolute, fabulous hopefulness and total precision about the actual devastated situation of the psyche and of the world. And I don't want to be in a position where I'm offering kind of beautiful, holy platitudes. I want to do real work that is adjusted to the real situation. And I find very few teachers and very few activists and very few mystics who are willing to do that kind of rugged, clear, sharp work, because most people want to take refuge in fantasy. And most people don't want to do the bloody, grueling shadow work and mystical transformation work that can actually provide the new human.
Totally agree. And I love, I mean, also I'd say that the refuge of is itself illusory. There is no
Yes,
refuge.
there's no refuge.
There's no refuge.
Yes.
Absolutely.
But tell me, so how would you envisage, would you ever do something like, I mean, what a wonderful thing it would be if you and I did a book for the young on mysticism and science and activism and this whole new talking like this about what is something, what would work? What would
What I
work?
would love us to do, what would I would love us to do is we've already been invited by Humanity's team to put together some online teachings next year. What
Yes,
I'd love to do is to co-create something far more participatory with youth,
yes,
far more community, co-creativity with youth,
yes,
far more an invitation
yes,
to action
yes,
based on this framework, this framework of a whole world view, based on a framework of evolutionary impetus, based on all
yes.
that we've spoken about today. I'd love us
Radical
to co-create
regeneration, a vision.
radical regeneration, all of it
Yes,
in a way that really is wholly invitational and participative to everyone
yes.
of all ages, but really emphasizing its relevance with youth. That's
I
what
would
I'd love
love
to do.
that. That would be, and the way to do that, I think, might be to get in touch with the environmental movements that are starting
Yeah,
with Jim Bendel and with Gretchen and all the people,
absolutely.
because that's where you find, where I have found the most amazing young people, because they are heartbroken and they are wild with pain at what's going on, and they're angry in the best sense.
All of the, and why
Yeah.
shouldn't they be? I mean,
Oh my
and I
God.
think what we, and I
Okay.
think, but I think what we can bring as well is to what the deep adaptation folks are doing, which is about resilience and relinquishment
That's Jim
and
Bendel's work. Yes.
restoration and reconciliation.
Yes.
I would like us to bring a revolution in human consciousness.
Yes. That's what they need.
because that's what's missing. That is what is missing in that amazing work that's being done.
It is.
And we now have the evidence that supports all that we've been sharing today.
Well, that's why I think your work is so important. That's why, apart from loving you and admiring you and realizing your wisdom, I think that the way you're doing it by plunging into science and making it obviously clear through science's own discoveries and clarities that this is true, that's going to have massive impact on the young who are tired of mystical platitudes, who are tired of being told that they are one, while the people who tell them they are one drive cars and pollute and spend money on useless things. They're tired of all that. They've seen through that, but the science still has tremendous authority in the right sense. So that helping the young to see, yes, all of the truths of the mystical path are absolutely manifested in science, and they're coming together in a way that offers us phenomenal new energy. That's thrilling.
Yes. And timely. In this urgency of this breaking down and breaking through, to have this come forward, you know, the fundamental nature of reality to be revealed at this time, as you say, to support, to empower, to inspire. I mean, it's an incredible story. I mean, every day when I write, Guy, her story is definitely writing me.
Oh God, I can see.
Wow. It's just an incredible story of life.
And what is giving you hope in this time now? You've talked about the young, and you've talked about this extraordinary new marriage that's appearing between evolutionary mysticism and science. But what else makes you excited for the future?
Well, having experienced, you know, we talked about this when we first met, multidimensional reality since I was tiny, since I was 4 years old. It's the realization and the appreciation just what incredible support we have. You know, we see what's playing out in this realm, but this realm is like the tops of waves on the surface of an ocean of what's actually coming through. So I've been feeling for many years, and this is why I went beyond the corporate lifestyle. I could feel this evolutionary impulse coming through and this multidimensional support for it coming through. So what's exciting me is all the support we have to show up and get out of the way and attune and align with this evolutionary impulse. And a huge part of that is this coming forward of the divine feminine. Yes, in such, and of course that's beyond gender, but that is this incredible birthing, mothering, nurturing, including, belonging,
and fierce.
And fear. Oh, she's
I mean, the women who are really rocking America are these amazing African American women who are coming out of the shadows and saying, "Get with the program," and they're saying it calmly, but they're absolutely relentless in their truth. It's stunning what's happening.
It is stunning. It's stunning, and they have the biggest hearts. The biggest hearts. God. Just wonderful.
Crucified and resurrected hearts. My current favorite is Stacey Abrams, who is just astonishing.
She's phenomenal.
Every time she comes on the screen, I just go into meditation because I realize I'm watching a great warrior.
Yes.
A real heroine of truth. And there are so many women coming out in all of the different, just this morning, this will amaze you. I saw this extraordinarily beautiful African-American woman. She's 40. She was made the youngest ever female partner in Goldman & Sachs. She's got Goldman & Sachs to put down $10 billion to help Black women who are now suffering hugely. And she was describing so brilliantly how she did it, how she got them to cough up, and what it's actually going to do and how it's going to work. And I was just sitting there, my head rotating with ecstasy, thinking, my God, this is the mother in action. Revolutionary, practical, brilliantly thought out. Unbelievably compassionate. She said, what does it matter that if you give a Black woman money for her business if she doesn't have money for childcare?
Exactly. Exactly.
Get real, everybody. And just that fact, that's what the feminine's bringing in, that all-embracing awareness of how people actually live and what they actually need to flourish and evolve. And this is a
Totally.
mental advance, isn't it?
Oh, it's huge, and it's all the feminine attributes allied with that incredible multitasking practicality, you
Exactly.
know, and that's, I think, for all of us, it is head and heart and hands, and so for me, this is what excites me, and what I'm finding also in the UK is there's an uprising of feminine leadership, which is so wonderful. But also there's also an uprising of masculine spirituality. It's incredible. We talk about the mysticism, and
Absolutely.
the UK is the British Isles is an ancient grail of mysticism. And so I'm loving that this is all now coming forward as well.
I hear you, and I'm so glad you said that about emasculate, because the thing that I really am awed by most in the young, I'm very moved by my young women friends, but that doesn't surprise me because I have an infinitely greater appreciation for women in many ways than for men. But what does gobsmack me is the beautiful young men who are here now,
Yes.
the astounding openness, the lack of homophobia, their own sense of their own sexual and emotional fluidity, their openness, their unbelievable respect for women and for transgender people and for gay people. I never thought I would live to see it, but it's here.
It's
And it's such
wonderful.
a wonderful foundation for the next level of awareness, isn't it?
It is. And I was talking to someone earlier, and we were talking about unity and diversity, because of course unity isn't uniformity, it's
No, thank
radical
God.
diversity. And the youth are so open to this, but also for me, it goes beyond diversity and it goes beyond inclusion. It actually enters belonging.
Yes,
It's the
I love it.
belonging
It's
of
there's
everyone.
unity and those can be mental. It's the recognition of yourself in the transgender person, that that's you, and that you love them and you salute their courage and you want to do everything imaginable to make it easy for them to have the richest possible chance to flower in their
For
lives.
everyone, though, for everyone,
But
whoever
everybody,
they
yeah,
are, to feel they belong,
right.
because they do.
They do because they're here.
They do because they're here. Absolutely.
Yes. Here we are all together.
So that's what excites me, all of the
Yes.
above.
And your wonderful writing and your wonderful work, that must excite you too. What's coming through must be thrilling for you, isn't it?
It is, but it's a funny thing, you know. I wouldn't describe it as that. I'm just in awe of the privilege of being able to be some form of conduit for this, in service and at
But
this time.
creativity is a
Yeah,
great
I
thing
love it.
too, isn't
I
it?
love it.
And the creativity of what's going on at the moment. I mean, we're lucky enough to know so many people doing such amazing work and such novel, original work.
Yes.
And that creativity itself is a sign of massive hope, isn't it?
Yeah, for me, the sacred marriage, the mystical marriage of the masculine and the feminine, when it gives birth to the child, that is the embodiment of co-creativity. That is the
That's it.
embodiment of creativity. You know,
Everything.
it's like, I mean, I don't know if you have any things that um, not just make your heart sing, because I know there's lots that do, but I know that I'm really creative when I forget the passage of time, when I
Yes.
forget where I am or who I am or
Yes.
what I am.
Yes. And come back reluctantly from that dance.
Absolutely. Oh, I better cook the dinner.
That's
But
what I
that's
love.
creative too.
Yes, yes.
Everything.
It's so lovely to be with you, Jude, because you're always so inspiring. And I, like you, believe the sacred marriage is the key to everything because it's the key to the nature of the universe. This very miraculous marriage of spirit and matter that is manifesting itself in billions of forms, that is the quantum field, that is consciousness creating. It's amazing, isn't it?
It certainly is. And it's wonderful to be with you, Andrew. And Long may our co-creative adventure continue together.
I know I have a lot to learn from you, and I
Oh,
look forward to that so much. And I cannot wait to finish your amazing book. Already, I can tell that it's going to rock my world in all the best ways. And I just beg you to just go on pouring yourself out, and I'll join you, and we'll do wonderful things together
bless you.
with all sorts of wild and wonderful people, because the time is now to
The
start
time is
dancing.
now.
Yeah.
I've been talking about us linking up and lifting up, but I think the next stage is leveling up and lighting up.
Yes. And maybe even lightening up.
Lightening up.
Because this is something that perhaps it's a lovely place to end, but I think what I've learning more and more is I've always been absolutely amazed by the Dalai Lama's playfulness.
Yes.
And I'm learning that while we must be serious and we must see things as they really are, and we must warn and we must shake our fists sometimes, what really communicates is the playfulness of joy.
Yeah.
And
Completely
that
agree.
gives people the encouragement. The Dalai Lama, by his cheerfulness,
Yes.
does more to enlighten people's spirits and galvanize action than so many activists do while with their anger. And
Yeah.
that's also worth remembering, isn't it? That the field is playful. God is playful. Creation is staggeringly playful in its core, isn't it?
Totally. I mean, I talk about waves, and waves begin, they grow, they peak, they fall. But a wave has three aspects. And I talk about love, joy, and gratitude
Right.
as a trinity of wave, of vibration, of resonance, of uplift. Yes.
Love, joy, gratitude. I'm on your train. I love you. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thanks for
Andrew.
coming. Thank you.
Bless you.